Hey everyone, it's Tobes, and welcome to your second monitor. Today is the next video in my series of Marvel Superheroes Commander deck techs. I'm releasing a new Marvel Commander deck every Thursday through mid-August when the Hobbit set drops, in addition to my usual Monday Commander deck tech videos. It's Marvel, so we're gonna have fun with it. As you see, today our commander is Monica Rambeau, a former Harbor Patrol officer born with the ability to manipulate light. After being exposed to the photonic contents of the light dimension, she discovered her powers went even further, allowing her to transform her body into pure electromagnetic energy. She left the Navy due to struggles she faced as a black woman, and found a home among the Avengers, a team she would later lead, by taking on the mantle of Captain Marvel. As with most Marvel heroes, Rambeau has had a long and involved history, but through it all, she's demonstrated leadership skill, combat prowess, and the kind of humanity we all hope to see in our superpowered protectors. I'm excited to show you what I put together for Monica, but before we get started, let's go over our deck building template. I like to build my decks around my commander. I want to show off why it's such a great card and why I thought it deserved a deck of its own. So I take about 30 cards and put them toward doing whatever my commander asks of me. This is our game plan. It's what we do at the table and how we try to win. 30 more cards go towards supporting that game plan in the form of card advantage, acceleration, and interaction pieces. I usually run 1 or 2 sweepers, sometimes more if it would play into the game plan, sometimes none at all, and I almost always keep to a floor of 38 lands. That way I can always hit my land drops and cast my spells and, play commander. So let's talk about our commander. Monica Rambeau is a 3/3 legendary human hero for 2 and a white, with flying and prowess. Pretty simple. We can also transform her at sorcery speed for 2 a red and double white into Photon, living light. This is also 2 a red and double white because we can play her as her backside from the command zone or our hand rather than just casting her as her front side and then transforming her. And when we do, we get a 4/4 legendary elemental hero with flying, hexproof, and prowess. And whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature we control. So when I first read this side of the card, I was immediately reminded of one of my favorite personal commanders, Ural the Miststalker. Like Photon, Ural is a 5-mana hexproof commander that rewards us for playing non-creature spells. And while Photon has a lot more flexibility of design, she does a pretty good Ural impression. She doesn't get a static bonus when we put auras on her, but when we do put auras on her, they trigger her prowess ability, which means she gets a bit of a bump. She's also inherently evasive thanks to her flying, which is invaluable when it comes to Voltron commanders. And best of all, she ensures that any other creatures we run will be plenty big thanks to her counter-adding ability. And that's great. One of the problems with the Voltron deck is that every card we include to make our commander bigger is one fewer creature card we can include to block or serve as a separate threat. Photon helps us split the difference. As long as we can provide her with allies, she'll do the work of making them stalwart and dangerous. Like any good leader, she takes care of her team. So our game plan centers mostly around playing Photon and then making her scary. We're running a number of auras to protect her, pump her up, give her extra forms of evasion like Menace and Trample, and otherwise make her more of the untouchable flying powerhouse she already is. We sometimes play her front side in case it's the best way to use our mana on turns 3 or 4, but typically we're using that time to ramp or play out other creatures to help her hit the ground running. When it comes to those other creatures, we have surprisingly many that can hang in combat instead of just serving as value engines. But the lion's share of our troops come from token-producing cards, both those that give us an extra body every turn, and those that make tokens every time we trigger their abilities, casting non-creature spells, having enchantments enter, or even just making land drops. It's not hard to end up with a board littered with little friends, then to watch them get progressively less little every time Photon puts counters on all of them. This deck is a ton of fun to play, and because our commander wants us to run creatures other than her, it feels less urgent than some Voltron builds. Hexproof gives us space to play, and when we trust the Photon to guide us through that space, she's a beacon we can follow to victory. Nothing dulls her shine, and every time we drop another aura on her, she shares her glow with the rest of the squad. Soon, we're a blinding streak across the battlefield, burning our opponents' retinas as we laser their life totals into nothing. They can see us as a problem, if they can see things at all, but if they can't find a solution fast, it'll be lights out for them. But for us, things are going great and they're only getting better. We're doing all right, getting good grades, the future's so bright, we've got to wear shades. You'll enjoy this deck if you like a game plan with a strong centerpiece who protects herself without neglecting the rest of your board, or if you like the idea of building up your commander until her brightness is enough to eclipse your opponent's plans entirely as you leave them staring at the sun. So as usual, this Moxfield list we're going over today is linked in the video's description. At the bottom of it, you will see a considering section full of cards that I considered putting in the deck, but ultimately which for me didn't make the cut. However, if you have a bigger budget or a smaller one, even though our budget is pretty solid today, if you like what I've done and you want to go harder into it, if you want to really go really heavy on auras, it's pretty fun to do. Or if you're interested in what I've done and you want to take it in a slightly different direction, that considering section is a great place to begin when you build your own Monica Rambeau deck. So let's begin. We're going to start with our auras section. These are all cards that either are or make an aura we can put on Monica, particularly on her backside, Photon Living Light. So we're going to start with the easiest one. It's Ethereal Armor. This is a single white for an aura that enchants a creature and gives that creature +1/+1 for each enchantment we control and first strike. What's nice about this is it doesn't just count our enchantments, or our auras that is, because we have lots of enchantments in this deck. As you can see, we've got 34 of them. So Ethereal Armor giving Monica first strike in addition to flying and prowess and hexproof on top of this huge power and toughness bonus is pretty sweet for a single mana. Another 1 mana aura is Hyena Umbra. This is a single white for an aura that enchants a creature, gives +1/+1 and first strike, and has Umbra Armor, which is something used to be called Totem Armor, now we call it Umbra Armor. What that means is, if the enchanted creature would be destroyed, instead we take all the damage off of it and we destroy the aura instead. So it's sort of like this is a bubble that can be popped by having our creature be destroyed. It doesn't work if Monica has just dealt some damage. She has to actually die from that damage or be in a situation where she would be destroyed by it. The same is true if an opponent plays a board wipe, and it's, a destroy all creature style board wipe, not like an exile effect. Because if she would be destroyed, instead, Hyena Umbra just pops off of her, goes to the graveyard, but she remains in play. Nice. Next we have Sentinel's Eyes. This is from Theros Beyond Death, a set that I really loved. A single white for an aura that enchants a creature and gives that creature +1/+1 and vigilance. Being able to give vigilance to our commander is so powerful. We have several effects that do, but anytime we hit one of them, it makes it just great because Monica gets so big and has flying and has hexproof. So if she's able to block as well with all of these huge bonuses we're giving her from all these auras, she's just very powerful for us on the defensive in addition to being offensive. Sentinel's Eyes, however, also has Escape for a single white and exile 2 other cards from your graveyard. Escape just says we can cast it from our graveyard by paying this cost, a white and exiling 2 other cards, which can be pretty nice. We don't usually want to lose Monica, and it's hard to do so if our opponents don't have some kind of board wipe or an edict effect that affects the creature with the greatest power that we control, that sort of thing. But if that does happen, then it's the disadvantage of running an auras deck over an equipment deck, which is that we have to, look at our graveyard and see that that's where all of our auras went. We can't immediately put them back. With Sentinel's Eyes, we can bring it back, and we can use any of the other cards that went to the graveyard to do so. Next we have Sticky Fingers, a single red for an aura that again enchants a creature and gives that creature Menace. Menace is pretty nice to go with flying, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, make a treasure. Pretty good. A little bit of acceleration for us in the form of that ramp. We can have Menace to get past any flying or reach blocker that our opponent may have, and when the enchanted creature dies, not something we want to happen, but when it happens, Sticky Fingers draws us a card. So it replaces itself in our hand if we happen to lose Monica. Pretty good. All That Glitters is next, just a classic from Throne of Eldraine, my favorite set. 1 and a white for an aura that enchants a creature and gives that creature +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. Like I mentioned, we have an awful lot of enchantments in this deck. We've got a few artifacts too, but in any case, this is a 2 mana Ethereal Armor that doesn't give first strike, and that's still pretty solid. Daybreak Coronet is next. This is double white for an aura that enchants a creature with another aura attached to it. So we can't put Daybreak Coronet on Monica or on anyone unless the creature we're targeting has an aura already on it. That could be relevant for an effect that we'll see later, because if we happen to bring this back from the graveyard and just attach it to something without targeting, it still can't enchant that creature unless it already has an aura attached to it. So, yeah, kind of a weird effect, but there it is. What it gives is +3/+3, first strike, vigilance, and lifelink. So an awful lot of value for just 2 mana, but it does require that it not be the first aura attached to a creature. But being able to pump Monica up to a 7/7, giving her first strike is good, giving her vigilance is great, giving her lifelink, why not? Yes, very good. So next up is Dog Umbra. This is another Umbra Armor card, sort of. This is a Modern Horizons 3 sort of variation. 1 and a white for an aura with flash that enchants a creature. That says, as long as another player controls enchanted creature, it can't attack or block. Otherwise, this aura has Umbra Armor. So that means for Monica, all this does is protect her. It just acts as a source of Umbra Armor, and that's fine. But if we happen to want to use this as a removal effect, it's Pacify. And that's pretty good. Being able to use this flexibly to shut down an opponent's creature or protect Monica is great either way, especially since it has flash. So we can, if Monica is going to be destroyed and she doesn't have any other protection, we can flash this in, suddenly she has Umbra Armor, and this falls right off. So it's as though we countered that spell or used a different kind of protective ability. Or if it looks like we might die when an opponent attacks, we can flash in Dog Umbra on their best creature so that it can't attack or block that turn. Or we can use this to make a creature unable to block, which means this is a form of evasion as well. And what's especially nice is, like all of the other auras we've seen so far, with one exception, it just says enchant creature, which isn't the same as enchant creature you control. So we can use any of these auras politically. We can pump up another player's creature if we need to. Typically, we're not doing that because we want to put our stuff on Monica and win. Dog Umbra specifically works in a way that we can't really help an opponent with it, in the sense of putting it on their creature to make their creature have Umbra Armor, but we can help an opponent with this if we were to want to, by enchanting another opponent's creature and making that creature unable to attack or block. So maybe we make a deal with opponent A to protect them from opponent B by putting Dog Umbra, flashing Dog Umbra in onto one of opponent B's threatening creatures. Or we can say to opponent A, look, if you make this attack, I can make it so their biggest creature or their commander or something can't block you. And then they say, okay, we'll make the attack. We flash in Dog Umbra and make it so the creature we said we would be able to prevent from blocking now can't block. And that means they can't block us either. So it's helping us, but also helping opponent A, and maybe we're getting a cool political benefit out of that trade. You know, lots of fun things we can do with this, especially with Dog Umbra having flash. But worst case scenario, it's a protection spell for us. That's pretty solid. A protection spell that also adds to our enchantment count for things like All That Glitters and Ethereal Armor. Next up is Gleam of Authority. This is a really cool one from Dragons of Tarkir. 1 and a white for an aura that enchants a creature, gives that creature +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on other creatures you control. Remember, every time we cast one of these auras, it's a non-creature spell, which doesn't just trigger Monica's prowess, or I'm sorry, Photon's prowess, since, well, I mean, it's both for either one, but if Photon is face up, it's also putting a counter on each of our creatures in play. So every time we cast any aura with Photon face up, we're getting a counter on all of our other creatures, and that's all of those counters add in to Gleam of Authority's bonus. So this is very strong for us. And if that weren't enough, Gleam of Authority gives the enchanted creature Vigilance. I've already talked about how Vigilance is so good with Monica and with Photon, but also a bolster effect. Bolster is pay a white and tap to bolster 1. Bolster 1 means we put a 1/1 counter on the creature we control with the least toughness. Or if we have multiple creatures that are tied for the lowest toughness, we put a counter on whichever of those we choose. Which, again, just adds to Monica. And we can do that at instant speed on an opponent's turn. Pretty great. I just really like Gleam of Authority in this deck. It's just cool. Glyph Elemental is next. This is a bestow creature. So this is a 2/2 for 1 and a white. It's an enchantment creature elemental, but it has bestow. Bestow is an alternate casting cost. That means if we cast it for its bestow cost, it is not an enchantment creature. It is an aura enchantment on the stack. It's targeting one of our creatures. It has enchant creature. And then if it enchants that creature and that creature dies, it will fall off and become a creature itself again. Or if the creature we're targeting with it when we're bestowing it happens to become an invalid target, then it will still resolve, but it will enter the battlefield as a creature rather than an aura. So we sort of can't miss with this either way. And it has a landfall ability. Whenever we have a land enter, we put a 1/1 counter on Glyph Elemental, and if it is an aura, the enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on Glyph Elemental. So pretty nice for us either way. We can cast this as a 2-mana 2/2 that gets bigger every time we play a land, or we can cast this as a 2-mana aura that makes Monica bigger every time we play a land. And then, if Monica happens to die, Glyph Elemental will fall off and be a creature that still has all those counters on it, and we can't re-enchant it somehow, but it is at least a bigger creature thanks to all the landfall triggers we would have gotten in the intervening time. Pretty good. Next up, we have Idolize. This is from the Fallout decks. 1 and a white for an aura that enchants a creature and gives that creature, whenever this creature attacks alone, it gets +X until end of turn, where X is the number of non-land permanents you control. In a sense, this is one trigger that essentially means if you have a creature attack alone, treat all your other non-land permanents as though they had Exalted. So it makes Monica absolutely enormous, and it means that we've left all of our other creatures back to protect us. So great, Idolized helps us out by making Monica enormous. If she's got flying and we're attacking someone with no flying or reach blockers, she's probably going to win with commander damage when this happens, because again, it's not just our other creatures, it's our non-land permanents. That includes Idolized itself, that includes any of our other auras, any of our artifacts that we have in play, everything other than our lands. Yeah, very, very cool. It also includes Monica herself, because it doesn't say other non-land permanents. So yeah, pretty sweet. Next up is Ossification. This is actually an aura that we have in the deck that is not meant to enchant Monica. This is a removal effect, but it just counts toward our number of auras and therefore our number of enchantments. 1 and a white for an aura that enchants a basic land we control, and when it enters, we exile a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls until Ossification leaves the battlefield. So this is an Oblivion Ring effect that costs 1 mana less than Oblivion Ring normally costs, because it's attached to one of our lands. So if someone happens to blow up one of our lands, then that's unfortunate, but we're putting it on a basic, so it's not like things along the lines of Demolition Field or Field of Ruin can get rid of that basic. So at the very worst, they're going to have to disenchant our Ossification, which is the threat for any kind of Oblivion Ring effect that you might have. So yeah, being able to hit any creature or planeswalker for just 2 mana is pretty nice, especially since, again, this is an enchantment, so it adds to the enchantment count for things like Ethereal Armor and all that glitters. Pretty good. Next from Kaldheim is Spectral Steel. This card works so much harder than it seems like it would. 1 and a white for an aura that enchants a creature and gives +2/+2. That's all it does. But we can pay 1 and a white and exile it from our graveyard to return another aura or enchantment from our graveyard to our hand. So this is not just 2 mana for a 2/2 for an aura that gives +2/+2. When it's in the graveyard, it's regrow any other aura for us. So that's awesome. Being able to get back any of our best auras, maybe we get back Idolized even, and all it costs us is Spectral Steel itself, which is already in the graveyard doing nothing for us. Pretty great. Next we have Spirit Mantle, a classic. 1 and a white for an aura, enchants a creature, and gives that creature +1/+1 and protection from creatures. That isn't just protection in the sense that, you know, a creature like a Royal Assassin can't target our commander. Spirit Mantle gives protection. Protection protects from debt. D-E-B-T. This is the acronym. It means that the enchanted creature cannot be damaged by any creatures, cannot be enchanted or equipped with creatures, not something that's really relevant here. It can't be blocked by any creatures, so this means the enchanted creature is unblockable, and it can't be targeted by any creatures. So the Royal Assassin thing I just mentioned, or if someone has a stuffy doll type of effect with a creature, can't hit our commander with it because that's a creature source sending the damage to us. Spirit Mantle gives protection from creatures. So this is an excellent evasion effect, but also protection, of course, in lots of ways, since it's the actual keyword protection, and +1/+1 on top of that. Great. Next is Squeeze Embrace from all the way back in Apocalypse. This is a white and a red for an aura that enchants a creature, gives +2/+2, and says when an enchanted creature dies, return that card to its owner's hand. So a little bit of recursion for us to protect us from losing Monica if she happens to die from a board wipe or something. Squeeze Embrace will go to the graveyard, but we're going to get back Monica right then, and we're going to be able to recast her from her hand rather than having to pay the commander tax. Pretty nice. Also, gorgeous Rebecca Gay art. Love this. We actually get to see Squee. I think this is Sisay. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, very cool. Next up is Eidolon of Countless Battles. I think it's actually pronounced Eidolon. I've heard a lot of different reports, obviously, but yeah, there you go. Lovely Raymond Swanland art. So this is 1 and double white for a 0/0 enchantment creature spirit that it has bestow for 2 and double white. So only one more to bestow it. And it says it and the enchanted creature each get +1/+1 for each creature we control and for each aura we control. So every creature and every aura, and since this is either going to be a creature or an aura, it's always at least a 1/1 on its own, or providing +1/+1 on its own. But it's not ever really providing +1/+1 because when it's an aura, it's enchanting a creature, so that's at least +2/+2. For 4 mana, that's pretty great. Next up is Etali's Favor, a classic from I guess kind of current standard since Lost Caverns of Ixalan is still in standard. This is 2 and a red for an aura that enchants a creature we control, gives that creature +1/+1 in trample, and when it enters, we discover 3, which means we get to exile cards from the top of our library until we find a non-land mana value 3 or less. We can either put it in our hand or cast it without playing its mana cost right then, and then everything else we exiled we put on the bottom in a random order. So a lot of the time, Etali's Favor finds us a second aura. So being able to pay 2 and a red, get +1/+1, trample, and an extra aura is pretty sweet in this deck. So yeah, if we hit something like, all the glitters, then we're getting a huge boost beyond just the +1/+1 and trample. Pretty good. Next up, we have another Eidolon. This is Ghostblade Eidolon. 2 and a white for a 1/1 enchantment creature spirit that bestows for 5 and a white, so pretty expensive. Notably, we cannot cascade into this or discover into this from Etali's Favor we can't cascade into it in the bestow cost because that's an alternate casting cost, and that's not how discover works. But we can get it for its regular value since we're discovering 3 and get it as a creature. And it has double strike, and it gives the enchanted creature +1/+1 and double strike. Pretty expensive, paying 6 mana to give Monica +1/+1 and double strike. But double strike on our flying commander is pretty great, especially since when we cast this as an aura, it's a non-creature spell, so we're triggering prowess, so at least that turn she's getting +2/+2 and double strike in addition to being a flyer. So that can be quite a bit of damage. We have a few double strike sources in this deck, and they're all incredibly effective, especially if we have something like Menace or Trample in addition to flying, or if we just attack the player that doesn't have any blockers for flyers. Pretty good either way. That can be the end of the game when it comes to commander damage. Next up, we have Gift of Immortality, which got a Marvel Superheroes supplemental product, the Commander product reprint. This is 2 and a white for an aura that enchants a creature and gives that creature. It doesn't give it to the creature. It says when the enchanted creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control, and then return this card to the battlefield attached to that creature at the beginning of the next end step. So if we put this on Monica and then she dies, she will come back. But Gift of Immortality will also come back, just not until the next end step. So what that means is there is a little window for our opponents to interact with Monica again. She will come back immediately when she dies, and if they have a removal spell, they can get rid of her again before Gift of Immortality comes back at the end step. And if she's gone before Gift of Immortality is able to return, it won't return because it only returns to the battlefield attached to that creature. So yeah. However, if Monica happens to get killed and no one can stop her from coming back or can get her again once she's come back, then sweet, Gift of Immortality will come back and help her out. But I do want to make mention specifically of Gift of Immortality and Squeeze Embrace. Both of these return. Squeeze Embrace puts her back in our hand. Gift of Immortality puts Monica back on the battlefield. It will put her back on the battlefield as Monica Rambeau, not as Photon. No matter how she left the battlefield, the front face of this card, of our commander card, is Monica Rambeau, so that is the only face that will come back if we're not casting her from her backside. However, luckily, we can just transform her again, and as long as she's not removed a second time, before Gift of Immortality comes back, it will probably be pretty easy for us to re-transform her, thanks to Gift of Immortality giving her, not indestructible, but giving her the ability to, again, come back if she dies. So yeah. Next up, we have Redemption Arc. This is 2 and a white for an aura, enchants a creature, gives that creature indestructible, and goads them. This might be seen as a disadvantage for Monica, because goaded means that creature cannot attack the controller of Redemption Arc, which is us. It's fine, she wouldn't have been able to attack us anyway, we are her controller. But she must attack each combat if she's able to. This pairs very well with Vigilance, obviously, but it's a great way for us to give her Indestructible, and goading her is something that we're not losing out on much because we're going to be attacking with her basically every turn anyway. However, we can also use Redemption Arc on an opponent's creature. It makes that creature indestructible, which is not ideal for us, but it does goad them, which means they are no longer a problem for us. Unless, of course, they are a flyer or reacher that has Vigilance, because then they can still block Monica. But typically, if they don't have Vigilance, that means they're going to be tapped down, since they will be attacking every turn. And since they're indestructible, they're going to be attacking every turn and probably not dying from it. So what we might do is put this on our opponent's scariest creature, like if they have a Galta in play. We would love to see a 12/12 indestructible trampling dinosaur attacking all of our other opponents until they're all dead. So yeah, Redemption Arc can be great for Monica, a little bit of a downside with the goad, but huge upside with the indestructible. Or it's a huge upside with the goad and very little downside with the indestructible if we put it on an opponent's creature, because we can also, at instant speed, pay 1 and a white and exile the enchanted creature if we need to. Obviously, we're not doing that with Monica, unless someone, I don't know, if they were going to do something horrible to her, like put an oubliette enchanting her. I suppose that's a possibility, if they find a way to turn off her hexproof, or if she's just front face up and she doesn't have hexproof yet. We might exile her to put her back in the command zone rather than lose her to something like Imprisoned to the Moon or Oubliette. But yeah, ultimately this ability is really for if we've enchanted an opponent's creature and we don't want it to attack us because it's indestructible, and it has to attack if it's able to, and maybe all the other players are dead, so it's got to attack us now. Well, we can get rid of it by just exiling it with this ability. Yeah, pretty nice. Next up is the Sound of Drums. This is a Doctor Who card, 2 and a red for an aura, enchants a creature, goads that creature. Everything I said about Redemption Arc is also true here. And it says, if enchanted creature would deal combat damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage instead. An excellent card to put on an opponent's creature, or to put on our commander. Just double all her damage, that seems great. And we can return this card from our graveyard to the battlefield. So if this gets an opponent's creature or Monica killed, we can always get this back. Pretty solid and a nice way to double her damage. Next up is Twinblade Blessing. Yet another nice way to double her damage because it's 1 and double white for an aura with flash. It enchants a creature and gives that creature double strike. Being able to flash this in and give double strike is very strong. We are more heavily white than red in this deck by a large margin, so the double white is not a problem in the casting cost. And being able to flash this in and give double strike, surprisingly, is very, very strong. And, like I mentioned before, even though it's not great for us, especially since we don't have like a safety valve like we do with Redemption Arc, we can put this on an opponent's creature and surprise another opponent, because maybe opponent A is attacking opponent B, they've made their blocks, and we say, oh, but before damage, I want to give double strike to your one creature that's attacking, or to the blocking creature. And then both of those opponents will be surprised by it. Yeah, typically, you might run Duelist's Heritage in a deck like this, if you weren't trying to do double strikey, or trying to do aura type things, and that would be even better for that kind of effect. But yeah, if we want an aura, we've got one in this, and this seemed like a fun option for us. Next up is Commanding Presence, another sort of weird choice for us, but it's a fun one. This is 3 and a white for an aura that enchants a creature, gives that creature +2/+2 and first strike, and says whenever it does combat damage to a player, we make a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. So this is a way to get repeatable damage, because first strike can seem like evasion in a way, because our opponent might say, well, I'm either blocking with this creature and definitely not trading, or I'm just taking the damage, so I might take the damage. But usually, this is going to come in the form of giving us, or the value comes in the form of giving us an extra creature that we'll be able to use to block or to pump up with Photon during our end step, or during our second main phase every turn. And that seems pretty nice. In addition to, of course, first strike and +2/+2. That's pretty good. Sage's Reverie is next, an incredible card from the Wilds of Eldraine Commander product. We have another one after this as well, but this card is so cool. It's 3 and a white for an aura that enchants a creature, and when it enters, draws us a card for each aura we control that's attached to a creature. So it's going to draw us at least one card, since it itself will be attached to a creature when it enters. And it gives that creature +1/+1 for each aura we control that's attached to a creature. Does not have to be attached to that creature, which could be relevant for us in some other ways we'll see soon. But yeah, this is a great card that replaces itself and gives a nice big pump based on all the other auras we have, at least on Monica. Songbird's Blessing is the other wonderful and also gorgeous card from originally Wilds of Eldraine Commander. This is 3 and a white for an aura, enchants a creature, and says when that creature attacks, reveal cards from the top of your library until you find an aura, put it on the battlefield. You may put it on the battlefield, and if you don't, put it in your hand, put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Notably, Songbird's Blessing is not the same as Etali's Favor. Etali's Favor discovers, which allows us to cast the card we find. Songbird's Blessing doesn't let us cast the card, it just puts it on the battlefield. So this is a good moment to talk about how auras that are put onto the battlefield rather than cast work. Auras, when they are cast as a aura spell, target. But when auras enter the battlefield when they aren't cast, their controller gets to, or the person who's putting them on the battlefield, whoever controls that effect, gets to attach them to any legal target they choose. Which means if we find an aura that is like, our, let's say, Redemption Arc, and maybe we don't want to put it on our commander, we can just put it on one of our opponent's creatures. And I know you're thinking, well, isn't that the same as just casting a spell that says enchant creature? Almost. Because we can put it on a creature that has hexproof or has shroud. Because even though that creature we're talking about has hexproof or shroud, what those abilities mean is that we're not allowed to target those creatures. But putting an aura into play doesn't target unless we're putting it into play by casting it. So if we Songbird's Blessing into a Redemption Arc and we want to put it on someone's shrouded commander, or their commander that has, Shroud from Lightning Greaves or Hexproof from the Swiftfoot Boots, whatever it may be, we can do that. We can bypass that ability because we are not targeting when we put that aura on it. And Shroud and Hexproof don't mean opponents can't interact with me. It means opponents can't target me. So that's a pretty sweet thing for us to be able to do. It's also the case that it might be relevant for us. It's just worth noting that Songbird's Blessing, as opposed to Etali's Favor, does not have us cast the aura we find, it just puts it on the battlefield. So that means no cast trigger, but also it gets around targeting. Just something worth noting for when that comes up for us. Yeah. Anyway, Songbird's Blessing is very strong. It gives no pump to our commander, and it's 4 mana, but it does give our commander a free extra aura, or at least gives us access to a free extra aura every turn. And if we, like with Discover, even though it's not casting it, if we don't want to put it on the battlefield, we can just put it in our hand. So yeah, essentially it's draw a relevant card every turn that you attack. Pretty good. Finally, in this section, we have one more 4-drop. It's Tempest Technique. 3 and a white for an aura that enchants a creature we control. It's got to be our creature, and it gives that creature +1/+1 for each enchantment we control. Doesn't say aura, doesn't say enchantment attached to that creature. It's just all of our enchantments, counts them up. And it has Storm, which means when we cast this, if there have been any other spells cast in this turn, including by our opponents, we make a copy of Tempest Technique. So if this is the 3rd spell cast, we get 3 Tempest Techniques, the original and 2 copies. If this is the 5th spell cast, we get 4 copies and the original. The copies all resolve first, of course, but they are copies on the stack, so they all do target. That's worth remembering. But we can, of course, choose new targets for the copies. So if we were somehow to make this the 5th spell cast in a turn, we're going to get 5 Tempest Techniques, and if we put them all on Photon, all of them are going to be giving +5/+5 at minimum, since they will all see themselves and each other. So that's +25/+25. So yeah, Tempest Technique is a alternate version of course, all the glitters and ethereal armor that just goes absolutely bonkers in this deck. So great. That is our auras section. We're going to go to a similar section, which is our pump section right now. This is going to cover all of the cards that we've already seen that are auras, like Ethereal Armor and Hyena Umbra and Sentinel's Eyes, that give some kind of power bonus to whatever they're enchanting, as well as ways that we have to otherwise pump up our creatures. For example, Requisition Raid. This is a single white for a sorcery, but not actually a single white because it has spree. We have to choose an alternate casting cost, an additional cost, but we can choose any or all of them if we wish. So for one generic, we can destroy an artifact, another generic, we can destroy an enchantment, or another generic, we can put a 1/1 counter on each creature that target player controls. Again, target player doesn't have to be us, but it usually will be, and what's nice about this is when we cast this with Photon in play, Photon triggers and puts a counter on each other creature we control. But then Requisition Raid resolves and we put a counter on all of our creatures, including Photon. That's pretty sweet. So we can use Requisition Raid as just a disenchant, at sorcery speed, 1 and a white to destroy an artifact, or 1 and a white to destroy an enchantment, or it could be 2 and a white and we destroy an artifact and an enchantment, or we throw that counter in there for each of our creatures, or we pay 3 and a white and get all of these effects. Pretty great, even though the trade-off is that it's sorcery speed. That's pretty solid. We've seen Sentinel's Eyes, pumps up whatever it's attached to, as does All That Glitters, Daybreak Coronet, Gleam of Authority, assuming there are counters among our other creatures, and Glyph Elemental. We've also seen all of these next 8, Idolize, Spectral Seal, Spirit Mantle, Ghostblade Eidolon, Itali's Favor, Eidolon of Countless Battles, and Squeeze Embrace, but we haven't seen Michiko's Reign of Truth. This is a cool saga from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Sagas, if you haven't seen them before, work like this. When it first comes in, we get a lore counter on it. And at the start of each of our first main phases on our subsequent turns, it gets additional lore counters. Every time it gets a lore counter, it triggers the ability with the number linked to the number of lore counters on it, and normally, after the final ability has resolved, it goes to the graveyard, but not so much with Michiko's Reign of Truth. So this is 1 and a white, for a saga that the first 2 chapters are just target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each artifact and or enchantment you control. So we get a little bit of a temporary version of All That Glitters, which is great because All That Glitters counts itself, Michiko's Reign of Truth counts itself too. And then the 3rd chapter, like all of the Neon Dynasty sagas, exiles the saga and then returns it to the battlefield transformed for us as a creature. Portrait of Michiko is a 0/0 enchantment creature, human noble, that gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment we control. So a big creature in our deck, probably, that can only get bigger as we cast more non-creature spells thanks to Photon's ability. Pretty sweet. Next up, we have even more pump effects. We've seen a lot of these, but we're seeing a few new ones now. Starting with Livon, Cultist of Tiamat. This is from Baldur's Gate, a really cool set. I'm currently, every Monday at time of recording, releasing a new commander deck for Battle for Baldur's Gate, covering every single legendary creature from Battle for Baldur's Gate. So check out the playlist linked in the video's description if you want to see what I've gotten so far. The sort of series has just recently begun this Monday, and we haven't gotten to Livon yet, but I sure will. I've got a lot of them to get through. So just check out the videos, the link in the video's description if you want to see that playlist. Anyway, Livon is 2 and a red for a 1/3 legendary dragon shaman that says whenever we cast a non-creature spell, so all of those prowess triggers we're getting on our commander, we get another trigger at the same time, target creature gets a power boost equal to the mana value of the non-creature spell you cast. That seems pretty great. And it says choose a background, not relevant for this deck, but relevant for that playlist I was talking about. Anyway, Livon is very strong for us and gives us a way to not just get +1/+1 with Photon's prowess trigger, but also a bigger power boost every time we cast any of these non-creature spells, and that's pretty nice. We've seen the Sound of Drums. Twin Blade Blessing does not actually pump our creature up, but does give our creature double strike, so it works close enough that we know what we're talking about when we look at this pump section. Commanding Presence does pump our creature up. Felidar Retreat is an enchantment, but not an aura. It's 3 and a white for an enchantment with landfall. Whenever we have a land enter, we either make a 2/2 white cat beast creature token, one of these things, or we put a 1/1 counter on each creature we control, and they all gain vigilance until end of turn. This is amazing. A lot of the time, we are making creatures in this deck because we want to use this as one of our ways to make tokens and go wide and get value from our other non-creature spells with Photon's trigger. But being able to put a counter on Photon and give her vigilance is pretty solid if we're able to get some extra land into play during our turn, or just our regular landfall trigger. Yeah, it's worth it sometimes to not get one more creature if it means all of our creatures are stronger, including our commander, and we get to attack with her without having to tap her. We've seen Sage's Reverie. We have not seen War Machine. War Machine, it's another new Marvel card from the Commander product. I believe this is actually from the Jumpstart product. But anyway, it's the Commander set. You know how it works. This is 4 and a red for a 3/5 legendary artifact creature, human hero, with flying. So this is an artifact. Relevant for the couple of cards like Michiko's Reign of Truth and All the Glitters that care about the number of artifacts and enchantments we have. So it's a 3/5 flyer for 5 that says when it attacks, attacking modified creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn. A creature is modified if it has counters on it, if it has equipment attached to it, or if it has auras you control attached to it. So this is going to be all of our creatures, because our commander is going to have auras on her. Our other creatures, because we've cast those auras, will have gotten counters on them when Photon triggered. So all of our creatures are either going to have counters on them or auras on them, or probably both. And War Machine is likely to have a counter as well, so a 4/6 flyer that becomes a 4/6 attacking flying double striker seems very strong. But putting double strike on Monica as Photon is very good. Double strike on all of our little creatures, very good. Yeah, War Machine can really be like an effect that just ends the game for opponents. Pretty cool. Next, we have 2 room cards from Duskmourn. Room cards work like this. This is an enchantment that we get to choose one of these 2 halves, which are called doors, when we cast it. It will resolve, and that door, let's say we choose Dollmaker's Shop, is all we have to cast. We pay 1 and a white for an enchantment. It enters as Dollmaker's Shop, and this door is called Unlocked. This door is called Locked. At sorcery speed, while this is in play, we can unlock the Porcelain Gallery side, and now it has the text of both sides. But until that point, it only has the text of the door that we cast. So you get it. Yeah, so normally we're going to cast this early on, and it's going to be Dollmaker's Shop. It's a generic and a white for an enchantment that says whenever one or more non-toy creatures we control attack a player, we make a 1/1 white toy artifact creature token. So this is not just cool because it helps us get a free token every time we attack. It also makes that token, and it's an artifact token, which again adds to our artifact count for things like All the Glitters. So yeah, we can pump these up when we cast our other non-creature spells with Photon, of course, but just nice little bonuses for what we're going to be doing anyway, which is attacking. And then Porcelain Gallery says 4 and double white. Creatures you control have base power and toughness each equal to the number of creatures you control. So if our creature count drops low, this can mean that Photon should be a 4/4, but is actually like a 1/1 since she's the only creature we have. So it can go the opposite direction for us. But then all we have to do is attack with her. She's not a toy, so we'll get a 1/1 toy artifact creature token, assuming we've got Dollmaker's Shop unlocked as well as Porcelain Gallery. And now she's a 2/2, which, again, not as good as a 4/4, but hopefully we're going wide enough that Porcelain Gallery is making all of our creatures, including these at 1.11 toys, enormous. Our other room enchantment is a sweet one from the Duskmourn what's it called? The Aminatu commander deck for the Duskmourn Duskmourn commander product. So this is one side is Secret Arcade, 4 and a white for a room that says non-land permanents you control and permanent spells you control are enchantments in addition to their other types. So this is really here just to be synergy with our things like our All That Glitters effects. You know, it cares about us having a lot of enchantments, and now everything we control that isn't a land is an enchantment. So it makes everything absolutely enormous. That means Monica herself is an enchantment, so she'll add to that count as well. And of course, Secret Arcade does too. So that seems like a pretty powerful effect. There are ways that we get value from it in addition to just All That Glitters style effects. But also, it has the Dusty Parlor for 2 and a white. It says whenever we cast an enchantment spell, and remember, with the Secret Arcade in play, all of our spells are enchantment spells. We put a number of 1/1 counters equal to that spell's mana value on up to one target creature, which means we can pump up Monica even bigger or put it on any of our other creatures. So yeah, Secret Arcade Dusty Parlor is very powerful. It's part of a 2-card infinite loop in that commander deck that I discovered during play. Not that, I was the first one to discover it. Other people knew about it. I just didn't know about it before I played it. But anyway, this is a fun card. I'm surprised to see how inexpensive it is since it has this sort of Enchanted Evening effect. But yeah, really good times. And that covers our pump section. And oh, hey, did you just like the video? Nice. Thanks a lot. I'm just kidding. You don't have to like it if you don't want to. I appreciate you being here either way. Thanks for joining me. So we are moving on from the biggest parts of our game plan into the support sections for our deck. We're going to start with our card advantage section, as usual. I often tag this as draw. It doesn't mean that all these cards do the draw a card action. They just give us access to more cards at some point when we need them. So Sticky Fingers is actually a pretty bad example of that, because it only draws us a card when the enchanted creature dies, but it does draw us a card then, so that's something. Similarly bad example is Mind Stone, too generic for an artifact that taps for a colorless mana. So this is really a mana rock for us. But it also says, if we pay 1, tap and sack it, we can draw a card. So normally what we do with Mind Stone is we play it early as a mana rock, and then later on, when we don't need that mana anymore, we can cash it in for a card. We can also cash it in early if we're desperate for card draw, but this deck has been very fast and efficient in my testing of it. Even though it seems like there's not that much card advantage in it, it has not really needed very much. So yeah, Mind Stone is pretty nice for us in both ways, but mostly in this deck, we want to get this out early so that we can get Photon out from the command zone earlier. Next we have Scholar of New Horizons, of which I wish there were a better printing for the, if you don't like this old style frame, but yeah. This is a cool card though. 1 and a white for a 1/1 human scout that enters with a counter on it, a 1/1 counter. So it's really a 2-mana 2/2, that's fine. And then we can tap it and remove a counter from a permanent we control, which could be the Scholar itself, to search our library for a Plains card and reveal it. If an opponent controls more lands than us, we put that in our hand, we put it on the battlefield tapped, and if we don't put it on the battlefield, we put it in our hand, and then we shuffle. So either this is a catch-up mechanic that lets us get out more land faster, or it draws us a Plains. And notably, it does not say a basic Plains card. So we can find one of our couple of dual-type lands in order to get it into play, or into our hand, so that we can fix our mana for both white and red. So Scholar of New Horizons is a great card in this deck for us to make sure that no one ever has more land than we do. We can get ourselves closer to it every turn. In addition to giving us a way to use the 1/1 counters that we're putting on our creatures with with Photon's triggers in a way that's not just the power and toughness of it. So we get Scholar of New Horizons out on turn 2 maybe. Turn 3, before we make our land drop, if anyone else has got 3 land, we activate the Scholar since it doesn't require a mana investment or anything. We just tap it, find ourselves a Plains, put it on the battlefield tapped, then play our land for turn, and now it's turn 3. We got a free extra land in play, and we still have 3 mana available to us, probably, assuming that land we made our land drop with was an untapped land. So yeah, this card can be great, even if we only get a land from it once. It's pretty nice, but being able to, with no mana, turn our counters into drawing more lands so that we don't miss our land drops. We don't even have to accelerate with that, just making sure we always hit our land drops. It's just very powerful, especially in a deck that keeps putting counters on creatures. Next up, we've seen Natali's Favor. It doesn't draw us a card, but it does discover into one, so that's a free card. Lauren of the Third Path is 2 and a white for a 2/1 legendary human artificer with Vigilance. So 2/1, a little bit fragile, but Vigilance pretty good, especially if we are putting a bunch of counters on Lauren. When she enters, we destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. So we get a free disenchant with Lauren, so she's a Reclamation Sage. Great, love her. And if we tap her, once she's able to be tapped, that is, you and target opponent each draw a card. So this is repeatable card advantage in a way that we can use politically. We can team up with another opponent if we want to, but in any case, we can at least get 1 more card every turn, even if it's just during the end step of our opponent to the right. And before that, we can block with Lauren or even attack with her because she's got Vigilance. Next, we have Mesa Enchantress. 1 and double white for an 0/2 human druid that says whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you may draw a card. A classic Enchantress creature, of course, for the Enchantress style of deck, of which this deck kind of is. We're not doing a lot of Enchantress-y things, but we're playing a lot of enchantments, and Mesa Enchantress can be very strong for us. I also want to make mention, as much as I can, that this card is so cool because it shows a person standing on a table. Mesa is Spanish for table, so it even works in Duskmourn. So cool. Next up is Court of Grace. Pardon me. Court of Grace is 2 and double white for an enchantment that says when it enters, you become the monarch. So if you're not familiar with the monarch, this is a rule that essentially is just 2 or 3 rules stuck together. It means this. If you're the monarch, which is a status that a player is designated with, at the start of your end step, draw a card. So you get a free card every turn if you end your turn as the monarch. The only way to become the monarch is either to play a card that says you become the monarch, or to deal combat damage to the player that is the monarch. Because when you do combat damage to the monarch, you become the monarch. And then, since you did that during your turn, since that's the only way to do combat damage, you'll go to your end step and you'll draw a card. So it encourages players to attack each other and thereby keep the game moving, because everyone wants that extra card. You just always attack the monarch if you have a good attack. So Court of Grace, on the turn we play it, we'll go to the end step and it'll draw us at least 1 card then. But it also starts the monarchy floating around the table, which gives players a reason to attack us and gives us a reason to attack them back and take the monarchy back. And if they don't want to attack us, that's fine. We just, on our next turn's end step, we will draw another card because we remain the monarch. It's good to be the king or queen. Or, whatever other ruler there may be. Yeah. Anyway, Court of Grace also says, at the beginning of our upkeep, we make a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So a nice repeatable way to get tokens, and it happens at the start of our turn rather than the end, so we're able to cast any of our non-creature spells, trigger Photon, and make those 1/1 flyers bigger. But sometimes they just start bigger, because if we're the monarch at the beginning of our upkeep, instead we make a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. Very, very strong here as a way to just have like a 4/4 flyer that also gets bigger the same way that 1/1 would. Yeah, very good for us. We've seen Sage's Reverie. It draws us at least 1 card when it enters, because we get a card for each aura we control that's attached to a creature. Pretty good. Songbird's Blessing draws us a card, essentially, that's an aura every time the enchanted creature attacks. And then we have Rabble Rousing. This is 4 and a white for an enchantment with Hideaway 5. That means when it enters, we look at the top 5 cards of our library, we exile one of them face down under Rabble Rousing, and put the rest on the bottom in a random order. And then, whenever we attack with 1 or more creatures, we make that many 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. So if we attack with just Monica, we get 1 citizen. It's not attacking, it's just there. But then, if we control 10 or more creatures, we can play the exiled card that we hid away without paying its mana cost. So this is eventually going to give us a free spell, and it's a spell that we got to choose from the top 5 when we played Rabble Rousing. But especially nice about Rabble Rousing is it stays in play even after we've cast that spell. So if we attack with just Monica, we get a creature. If we attack with Monica and 3 things, we're attacking with a total of 4, so we get 4 citizens. If the next turn we attack with all of that, that's 8 things, we're going to get 8 citizens, and now we have 16 creatures. And we can keep doing this, getting rewarded for our attacks every turn by getting more and more creatures, and then if we just cast our non-creature spells either on our next turn or after these creatures have entered during our second main, we're going to be able to pump them all up with Photon's triggered ability. Great. That covers all of our card advantage section. Let's take a look now at our acceleration, which as usual I've just tagged as ramp. We're starting with Soul Ring. Of course we're running Soul Ring. It's a single generic mana for an artifact, taps for 2, colorless. It's extremely powerful. You should put it in your deck, especially in a deck like this one where we have a commander that requires 3 colored mana and 2 colorless mana to get her out on her backside. Sticky Fingers is a single generic that when the now menacing enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, we make a treasure. So repeatable treasures seems good to me. Wayfarer's Bauble is next, a single generic mana for an artifact that if we pay 2, tap, and sack it, we get to Rampant Growth. Search for a basic, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. So this is Rampant Growth, but we don't have to pay any green mana into it. We just have to pay an extra mana to get it into play at all. But we don't have to do that on the same turn. So sometimes a green player plays a forest and passes the turn, and then next turn plays another forest and plays rampant growth. If we get Wayfarer's Bauble out on turn 1, we can quote-unquote rampant growth by cracking our bauble on turn 2, and we're not doing any worse than that green player did, and we're not anywhere close to green in our Boros deck. So yeah, I think Wayfarer's Bauble is very strong for something like this. Next up is Alicia Masters Skilled Sculptor. This is a cool creature from Marvel Superheroes Commander. I believe it's the Jumpstart product, and I assume this is a creature or a character that knows the thing, just based on the flavor text, but seems like a cool person. So yeah, 1 and a red for an 0/4 legendary human artificer that says at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you've cast a non-creature spell this turn, make a treasure token. So a lot of the time, if we're not waiting till our second main to cast our auras or our other enchantments or other non-creatures, we're going to be able to go to combat, get ourselves a treasure, and we're all set. We can use that to cast anything else later that turn or on the next turn, and Alicia's all set for us. In addition, Alicia is an 0/4, so every time we cast a non-creature spell, she's going to get bigger and become an even better blocker for us thanks to Photon's trigger. And she has another ability that's not that relevant for us, but it's fine. Sense the Good. At the beginning of your end step, each player gains control of all creatures they own. So if anyone steals our creatures, our commander, whatever it may be, Alicia will say, no, you didn't. If anyone else at the table is running like effects like Reanimate, and they're reanimating other people's creatures from the graveyard, Alicia is going to say, no, not anymore. Because even if someone steals Alicia, it says each player gains control of all creatures they own. So if someone steals Alicia, Alicia will come right back to us. So yeah, it's a pretty cool effect. You don't see it that often. I remember it in one of the Tristanis during Ravnica 3, like Guilds of Ravnica Allegiance time. But yeah, kind of a cool effect. Not really what we're looking for here. We just want to be able to get a free treasure every turn, which is pretty likely in this deck. And she's a good blocker, like I mentioned. Arcane Signet is a 2-mana artifact that taps for 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity. So in this deck, white or red. This is an untapped 2-mana mana rock that makes both of our colors. That's very efficient. That's exactly what we want. Of course, we're going to run it. We've actually got a couple of other options for that. Boros Signet is another 2-mana artifact. We have to pay a mana into it and tap it, but then we get to make 2 mana. So we're tapping 2 mana sources, whatever we're paying this into, and the Signet itself to get 2 mana, but at least it fixes our mana, and that's pretty good. Next up, we have Fire Diamond. This is another 2-mana rock. It comes in tapped, but it makes red for us when it untaps. So rather than being an untapped 2-mana rock like a Mind Stone, it comes in tapped, but it does make one of our colors, and that's solid. We are, of course, also running Marble Diamond, which is the exact same thing, but it makes white. We have Knight of the White Orchid as well. Double white for a 2/2 human knight with first strike that says when it enters, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for a Plains card, put it on the battlefield, and shuffle. So this is doing something similar to Scholar of New Horizons. It's just only doing it on its enters trigger. We can play this on our second turn if we've already got 2 white sources, or on our third turn, I should say. If we're not the first player, if any other player already has an extra land in play, we can go find ourselves an additional Plains and put it on the battlefield, and then we're all set. Even if this is just a 2-mana 2/2 first striker, that's not horrible, because a first striker that we put a bunch of counters on with Photon is still pretty powerful for us. But hopefully we're able to get this out early, and it helps to accelerate us into Photon. Next up, we've seen our Mind Stone. 2-mana untapped rock, makes colorless mana. We've seen the Scholar of New Horizons, can help us find a Plains card and put it either into our hand or into play tapped over and over throughout our game. And we have one more 2-mana untapped rock, which is Talisman of Conviction. 2 generic for an artifact, taps for colorless, or it taps for a red or white if we're willing to let it do a damage to us. As I like to say for the talismans, we are always willing to let it do a damage to us. The reason being, if you need mana, you can just tap this for colorless. But if you need colored mana, what that means is tapping this is the difference between being able to cast a spell or not. So would you take a damage to be able to cast one more spell than you were going to be able to during that turn? I would, every time. Maybe we do that 5 or 6 times throughout the game, and we're down 5 or 6 mana, but 5 or 6 life, but that also means we're up 5 or 6 spells cast total throughout our game. And you know, the player that casts the most spells is often the one who wins. So being able to pay 1 life just to fix our mana, and it always fixes our mana exactly as we need it to, very, very good for us. And again, if we don't need that colored mana, we just tap it for colorless. Great. So that is our acceleration section. Let's take a look now at our interaction, which as usual I've just tagged as removal. This is a red deck, so we're running Lightning Bolt. Of course we are. A single red for an instant, it does 3 damage to any target. You can go to your opponent's face with this, you can kill planeswalkers, you can help someone out by doing damage to their battle, or you can just kill a creature. Or maybe a creature has not died from combat damage being marked on it, we just push them over the edge with our Lightning Bolt. It's so inexpensive, it's so fast, it's so efficient. Gotta run Lightning Bolt. We've seen Requisition Raid because it can blow up artifacts and enchantments. Let's talk about Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares. As I often say, these cards are almost the same thing. They're both a single white mana for an instant that exiles a target creature and gives that creature's controller a little kickback. Swords to Plowshares lets that creature's controller gain life equal to the creature's power, and Path to Exile lets that creature's controller rampant growth. They search for a basic, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. So both of these are single mana, instant speed, unconditional exile removal for creatures. They're just so powerful. Paying $1.50 for each one is totally worth it, and they go in every white deck you're going to run, the same way that Lightning Bolt goes in every red deck. So yeah, put them in there. Next up, we have Abrade. Obviously, you don't have to run this new, gorgeous Secrets of Strixhaven Mystical Archive printing, but it's no more expensive than any of the other ones, so why wouldn't you? It's so cool. This is an instant that for 1 and a red that says it either deals 3 damage to a creature or destroys an artifact. So lets us blow up an artifact, lets us probably kill a creature. It's just Lightning Strike to a creature or Shatter. Yeah, this is great. We want to run this. Next up, we've seen the Dog Umbra. It can be Pacifism. Makes it so an enchanted creature that an opponent controls can't attack or block, and we can cast it at flash speed. Good. Ossification, similarly, is a way of removing an opponent's creature by exiling it, sort of an O-ring effect that relies on us having a basic land. Emergency Eject is next. I'm going to give you the spiel. Emergency Eject is underplayed in Commander. This card is great. If you're playing Generous Gift, then that's 2 and a white for an instant that destroys any permanent and gives the permanent's controller a 3/3 green elephant creature token. But most of the time, players in Commander, especially the ones that would want a deck of the power level that I build for my channel, they don't want to see lands get destroyed. So why would you run Generous Gift if you're not planning to destroy lands with it? When you could run Stroke of Midnight, which is the same spell, except that it can only hit non-lands, and instead of giving them a 3/3 elephant, it gives them a 1/1 human. So give them a worse creature when you're not going to hit a land with their spell anyway. To that I say, if you're going to run Stroke of Midnight, you might as well run Emergency Eject instead, because it doesn't give them a creature at all. It's 2 and a white for an instant that destroys a non-land permanent, and instead of giving them any creature, it gives them a Lander token. Lander tokens are Wayfarer's Baubles. They're artifacts that you pay 2, tap, and sack them to Rampant Growth. So why, if you're going to run a 3 mana, instant speed, white spell that blows up a permanent, if you're not planning to hit lands, Emergency Eject is the best option for you, because not only does it not give them a creature that they can block with, or sacrifice to creature, sacrifice effects, or anything like that, but it lets them find a land, but they've got to pay mana to do so. I mean, even Path to Exile just gives them that Rampant Growth effect. I'm not saying this is anywhere near the power level of Emergency Eject. Obviously, Path to Exile is so much better. But Emergency Eject hits any non-land permanent and forces them to pay to crack that Lander token and get their Rampant Growth effect. Just saying, I think this card is great. Next up, we've seen Lauren. Lauren is a Rec Sage. She destroys an artifact or enchantment when she enters. Redemption Arc can exile the enchanted creature, and of course goads that creature, so we're able to turn that creature off, essentially, for us. Or if we want to, we can just treat this as a 5 mana exile effect by enchanting the creature with it first and then immediately exiling it with the activated ability. Finally, we have Will of the Mardu. This is 2 and a white for an instant that says choose one. If you control a commander as you cast this, you may choose both instead. Either make a number of 1/1 red warrior creature tokens equal to the number of creatures target player controls. Does not have to be us, it's just whoever has the most creatures, we get that many warriors. Seems good. Or Will of the Mardu deals damage to target creature equal to the number of creatures you control. So if we have our commander in play, when we cast this, we're getting to make a bunch of creatures and then do even more damage based on that to whichever creature we want to destroy with this. Pretty sweet. That covers our interaction section. We are running a single Wrath, and this time it's Slash the Ranks. This is 3 and double white for a sorcery that destroys all creatures and planeswalkers, except for commanders. So we get to keep Photon, and we're going to be able to rebuild because we have a number of ways to make tokens, and of course we can draw more creatures and cast them, but we've got plenty of ways to make tokens that are not based on our creatures, but are actually based on our auras or our other enchantments. So yeah, Slash the Ranks it doesn't mean that always we are the one who rebuilds fastest, but it does mean that if our opponent's commanders don't have reach or flying, we can probably at least that turn attack in with Photon and do an awful lot of damage in the air. Pretty good. That is our only Wrath, and so that covers our support sections of the deck. We're going to talk about the few supplemental sections we have now, starting with our Payoffs. These are all cards that, as I like to say, reward us for doing what we were going to do anyway. So Alicia, for example, wants us to cast non-creature spells because as long as we do that before combat, we get a treasure. That's pretty good. Aligned Heart is a 2 and a white enchantment with Flurry. Whenever we cast our second spell each turn, and we want to cast a bunch of spells during our turns, we get to put a rally counter on Aligned Heart. Rally counters don't have an inherent mechanical meaning, they're just used by this card. And it says, then, after we put a rally counter, we make a number of 1/1 white monk creature tokens, each of which has prowess, for each rally counter on it. So really, this is in this section because the creatures have prowess, and prowess rewards us for casting non-creature spells. But we are trying to double spell as often as we can in this deck, and so being able to make these monks get these rally counters on it is pretty good. Notably, the first turn we do this, we put a counter on it, we get 1 monk. The next turn, we put a counter on it, we get 2 monks. The next turn, we put a counter on it, we get 3 monks. So it gets bigger and bigger as we go. Next up, this card is amazing in this deck. This card is so cool. Frontline Heroism is a Foundations Jumpstart card. Did it start in Jumpstart 22? Nope, it's fresh from Foundations Jumpstart. 2 and a red for an enchantment that when it enters, it makes us a 1/1 red soldier creature token with haste. So the token has haste. That's relevant in a way you'll see in a moment. It's just very nice for us. So for 3 mana, we just get a 1/1 creature. That's not horrible for us. It's not great, but it's okay. Because whenever you cast a spell that targets only a single creature you control, so all of our auras that we're putting on Photon, when we do that, we make a 1/1 red soldier creature token with haste and then copy that spell, and the copy targets the token. So if we cast Sage's Reverie with Frontline Heroism in play, targeting Photon, we make a 1/1 soldier and a copy of Sage's Reverie that's also on that attaches itself to that soldier. Then we cast All the Glitters, targeting Photon. We make another soldier and a copy of All the Glitters that's on that soldier, making that soldier enormous. So this is really cool. We're getting not just token creatures, but token enchantments, as well as any other spell that we have targeting one of our creatures. Yeah, we're going to be able to get cool stuff out of that with these soldiers. So yeah, just being able to spread out our enchantments. Because remember, if we have All That Glitters in play, it's going to count the token enchantments that Frontline Heroism makes as well as all the regular enchantments we have. Plus, it's going to keep making us soldiers every time we do the thing we want to do, which is cast auras on Photon. Great. We've seen Levon. Levon pays us off by pumping up one of our creatures, usually Photon, whenever we cast a non-creature spell. Mesa Enchantress gives us a card every time we cast an enchantment. Monastery Mentor is another way for us to make more tokens. 2 and a white for a 2/2 human monk with prowess, so rewards us for non-creature spells, but rewards us for it in another way as well, because whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we make one of those 1/1 white monk creature tokens with prowess. So we get more and more and more tokens for every non-creature spell that is, but each of those non-creature spells also pumps up the mentor, pumps up the tokens, and pumps up both of them with Photon's trigger by putting more counters on them as well. Very good. Archons of Sun's Grace is next. This is 2 and double white for a 3/4 Archon with flying and lifelink that gives all of our Pegasus creatures lifelink. Now, we don't have any Pegasus creatures, but Archon of Sun's Grace has a constellation trigger. Whenever an enchantment we control enters, we make a 2/2 white Pegasus creature token with flying. So we get a free Wind Drake every time we have an enchantment enter. All of them have lifelink while the Archon is in play, and the Archon is a 3/4 flyer with lifelink on itself. Very, very good. Notably, it's whenever an enchantment you control enters. So that doesn't just mean when we've cast a spell, it also means when Frontline Heroism has a token copy of one of our auras enter attached to this soldier. And whenever we have something from, let's say, Sage's Reverie enter the battlefield without being cast, it has entered the battlefield. So it's not even a cast trigger. It's just, as long as these things have come in, we're all set. We get a 2/2 flyer that is going to have lifelink as long as the Archon's in play. Great. Also, the Archon and those flyers are going to get bigger thanks to Photon. Since if we've cast an enchantment, usually it's not a creature, it's not an enchantment creature, it's an aura. So we're getting these triggers and we're getting counters thanks to Photon. In addition, we have Ghostly Dancers. 3 and double white for a 2/5 spirit with flying that says when it enters, we return an enchantment card from our graveyard to our hand, or we unlock a locked door of a room we control. We've got 2 room enchantments in our deck, so we can use this to just unlock the more expensive one without having to worry about having to cast it. That's pretty good. We can get a Porcelain Gallery without paying 6 mana. And that's pretty solid because Ghostly Dancers has Eerie. Eerie is Constellation, but it doesn't just trigger when enchantments we control enter, it also triggers when we fully unlock a room, meaning we might be doing that when the Ghostly Dancers enters itself. And what does it give us when we fully unlock a room or whenever an enchantment we control enters? Just enters, not cast. We make a 3/1 white spirit creature token with flying. 3/1 flyers that we can put counters on? Think about having a couple of counters, just playing a couple of cheap auras that same turn. We cast an aura, we get multiple triggers from casting the aura. It's the prowess trigger off of Photon, it's the put a counter on everything trigger from Photon, and once those resolve, we're going to get the Ghostly Dancers trigger because that enchantment will enter the battlefield. We get a 3/1 flyer. Then we cast another one of our auras. We get another prowess trigger off of Photon, but also another trigger that puts counters on our creatures, and now our 3/1 flyer is a 4/2 flyer. After a couple of turns, we're going to have some 6/4 flyers, which is crazy. That's crawl worms in the air. I don't know. This it seems crazy to think about, but getting so many cheap enchantments and getting value out of them from things like Ghostly Dancers and Arcana Sun's Grace, just very powerful for us. And of course, Dustly Parlor is a payoff for us as well. Whenever we cast an enchantment spell, this is a cast trigger, we get to put a number of 1/1 counters equal to that spell's mana value on up to 1 target creature. Oftentimes that's going to be just Photon. Pretty good. That covers our payoff section. We also have this synergy section. These are all cards that care about the things we're doing without necessarily giving us a direct reward for it. For example, Ethereal Armor gives the enchanted creature a power and toughness boost equal to the number of enchantments we control. Same for All That Glitters, except it's enchantments and artifacts. Same for Gleam of Authority, except it's the number of 1/1 counters on other creatures we control. Idolized counts the number of non-land permanents we have and gives a power and toughness bonus to the enchanted creature when it attacks alone, equal to that. Michiko's Reign of Truth, similar count for All That Glitters on both the front and the back side. Scholar of New Horizons helps us use those 1/1 counters we're putting on everything, as I mentioned earlier, beyond just letting them boost power and toughness, by giving us the ability to draw or ramp into more plains cards. Eidolon of Countless Battles also counts the number of creatures and auras we control, so instead of artifacts and enchantments, or just enchantments, it's creatures and auras. Kind of weird, but there it is. Sage's Reverie counts the number of auras we control that are attached to creatures. Tempest Technique counts the number of enchantments we have. War Machine gives all of our modified creatures double strike. And Secret Arcade makes all of our non-land permanents into enchantments. So these all help us in these synergistic ways. And that's our synergy section. Let's take a look at all the ways we are protecting our creatures and ourselves. So we've seen all but 2 of these. Hyena Umbra and Dog Umbra are both Umbra Armor cards, as long as we've put Dog Umbra on our commander, so it protects her. Redemption Arc makes the creature that's enchanted indestructible, which of course, if we put it on Monica or Photon, then that seems good to me. Spirit Mantle gives protection from creatures, that's good protection. Sound of the Drums, the Sound of Drums, protects us by goading that creature. Same is true for Redemption Arc. If we are putting this on a creature that's not our own creature, it means that creature is stronger, either because it's indestructible or because its damage is doubled, but we don't have to worry about it, unless of course it has Vigilance, because we've put it on a creature that we hopefully did not choose something with Vigilance, so it can't block us, and that's pretty good. And it's not going to come and attack us since it's attacking other things. What we haven't seen are Ghostly Prison which is 2 and a white for an enchantment that says creatures can't attack you, unless their controller pays 2 generic for each creature they control that's attacking you. This is solid for us. It's not usually something we need in this deck, simply because it's not hard for us to make so many tokens that we have plenty of defenders. So if you wanted to swap out Ghostly Prison, since it is $4, for something that makes even more tokens, that would be fine. Or just a creature, that's okay too. But I like this being in here because it adds to our enchantment count. And then we have Umbra Mystic. This is 2 and a white for a 2/2 human wizard that gives all of our auras that are attached to permanents we control Umbra Armor. So just a very strong way to turn every one of our auras that's on Photon into a dog Umbra, which all it does if it's attached to Monica is have Umbra Armor. So every one of our auras is just a bubble that can be popped rather than her being destroyed. Seems good. That is our protection section. Let's go now to our evasion section. These are ways that we can get evasion for Photon that aren't just her flying, and we've seen them all already. Sticky Fingers gives Menace, Itali's Favor gives Trample, and Spirit Mantle gives protection from creatures, so nothing's going to block her. Pretty good. That's all we need for evasion. We also have a recursion section. These are all cards that either can bring themselves or other things back from the graveyard. Sentinel's Eyes we can cast from the graveyard by escaping it, paying a white and exiling 2 other cards. Spectral Steel, we can't bring it back, but it can bring back another aura to our hand from the graveyard. Squeeze Embrace, the enchanted creature, if they go to the graveyard, we get to put them back in our hand. Gift of Immortality brings that enchanted creature right back to the battlefield, and then reanimates the gift itself during the next end step. Pretty good. Sound of Drums, we can bring back from the graveyard by paying 2 in a red, just activating its ability. And Ghostly Dancers enters the battlefield, and we can either unlock a locked door of a room we control, or return an enchantment from our graveyard to our hand. That's our recursion section. And the last thing I want to do is look at all the ways that we have to make tokens in this deck. So we have seen all of them. Yeah, Aligned Heart gives us a rally counter and at least 1 Monk with Prowess every time we cast our second spell every turn. Frontline Heroism comes with a 1/1 soldier, but also gives us an extra soldier every time we cast a spell that targets only a single creature we control, and then makes a copy of that spell and targets the soldier that we just made. Monastery Mentor makes us a 1/1 Prowess Monk every time we cast a non-creature spell. Will of the Mardu makes us a whole bunch of 1/1 Red Warriors when we cast it, if we choose that mode, of course. Archon of Sun's Grace gives us a 2/2 Flying Pegasus when one of our enchantments enters. Commanding Presence, when the enchanted creature does combat damage to a player, we get a 1/1 White Human Soldier creature token. Court of Grace, at the start of our upkeep, either makes us a 1/1 Spirit that flies, or if we're the Monarch, a 4/4 Angel that flies. Felidar Retreat, one of the 2 modes for landfall, can be making a 2/2 Cat Beast. Ghostly Dancers gives us a 3/1 Spirit creature token with flying whenever we have an enchantment enter or when we fully unlock a room. Rabble Rousing, every time we attack, we get a number of 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens equal to the number of attacking creatures. And whenever we attack with Dollmaker Shop in play and unlocked, whenever we attack with any creatures that aren't toys, we get a 1/1 white toy artifact creature token. Pretty solid. And that covers all of the cards in our token section and all of the spells in our deck. As usual, we're going to go over our land base now, starting with our basics. So we're running 9 plains, 7 mountains. Of course, we're running the Marvel Superheroes arts for it, because that's where Monica comes from. You could put a lot more basic plains in this deck if you want to make the mix a little bit more representative of the color mix in the deck. But I like to skew in these kinds of decks toward a more even mix of lands, just because I don't want to be in a situation where I'm desperate for red in order to cast Photon, either transforming Monica into Photon or casting Photon from the command zone. And because I'm running, 3 mountains and a bunch of plains, I just haven't hit any of my mountains. So because we do have a few cards that require multiple white pips, we are still more heavy on white, but for the most part, this is a solid balance, and this is what I would recommend that you go with. Glittering Massif is a bicycle land. It's a land that is a plains and a mountain inherently, so it inherently taps for red or white. It comes in tapped, or we can cycle it for 2 generic, which is to say we pay 2 and discard it from our hand to draw a card. Much like Mind Stone, this is something we do either early game if we're just desperate for card draw, or late game if we draw it and we just don't need any more mana. Usually, this is a card that I am fetching with Knight of the White Orchid or Scholar of New Horizons, simply because this is a plains card. It doesn't matter that it's also a mountain. We can find a plains, so we want to find something that is a dual land if we can. And we're running 2 typed duals. Glittering Massive is what I like to find, since both of those cards I mentioned bring the plains into play tapped, and so Glittering Massive already comes in tapped. Yeah. If you were to want to upgrade a bicycle land, I usually suggest a shock land. So Sacred Foundry is the shock in these colors. It's just much more expensive, but it can come in untapped. Clifftop Retreat is next. This is a check land. It taps for red or white, and it enters tapped unless we control a mountain or a plains. We are running 16 basics in this deck, which is a sixth of the deck. But what I like to do is I don't include check lands in my deck unless I'm running at least 18 sources of lands that could make those check lands come in untapped. And in this deck, we are. Because not only do we have 16 basics, but we have Glittering Massive, which is a mountain and a plains. So as long as it's in play, Clifftop Retreat will come in untapped. The same is true for the Tango land that you'll see we're running as well. We have a creature land in this deck. It's Restless Bivouac. This is a cool card from Wilds of Eldraine. It's a tap land that taps for our colors, so that's already solid for us, but it gives us extra value too. We can pay 1 a red and a white, and it becomes a 2/2 red and white Ox creature until end of turn that is still a land, which means if we do this and then cast a non-creature spell, we're going to get Photon's trigger and be able to put counters on the Bivouac, making it a bigger creature. Those counters will remain even when it's not a creature, so that when we make it a creature again later, that's pretty sweet for us. And whenever it attacks, we put a 1/1 counter on target creature we control. So we can give a counter back to Photon, or any of our other creatures, whenever we attack with this. I think creature lands are just fun. It's a nice way for us to pump up Monica, but also if we're not desperate for fixing, like we're not in this deck, being able to have the occasional creature land as a little bit of a backup to a board wipe, or just to have a little bit more in terms of a wider board, yeah, it seems fun. And also, look at this cow, very nice. Next up, we are running 2 filter lands. Sunscorched Divide is a land that is just like our Boros Signet. We pay 1, tap it, and makes both of our colors. Seems good. We've also got our Rugged Prairie. This is a land that does, on its own, tap for colorless mana. Or we can put a red or a white into it and tap it, and it makes double red, double white, or one of each. So this is very good for us. It taps for mana without us needing to filter something into it. The problem is it doesn't tap for colored mana unless we can put colored mana into it. Whereas the Sunscorched Divide can tap for colored mana no matter what kind of mana we put into it. So both of these cards have a place in our deck. Next up, we've got 4 fixing lands. We're of course running Command Tower. It's Arcane Signet as a land, if you want to think of it that way. It taps for 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity, so red or white in this deck. So it's an untapped duel. Yeah, we're going to run that. We're also going to run a tapped version of it. This is Path of Ancestry. It comes in tapped, and it has the exact same text as Command Tower, but it also says when we use its mana to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with our commander, we scry 1. So in this deck, obviously, Monica shares types with herself. So if we use this mana to cast her on either side, we're going to get that scry. But we don't get the scry if we use Path of Ancestry's mana to transform Monica, because at that point we're not casting her, we are transforming her. However, there are 8 other humans in this deck. And since Monica on her front face is a human hero, then as long as her front face is up, or she's in the command zone, any human we cast or hero we cast is going to give us a scry, assuming we've used Path of Ancestry's mana to cast it. Notably, however, if Monica is in play as Photon, if she's transformed, then our heroes, of which we have a couple, will still trigger, but our humans will not, because we only use the face of our commander that is face up, and in all zones other than the stack or the battlefield, we only use the front face of her. Because Photon is not a human, Photon is an elemental hero. We do have 1 elemental in this deck, so if Photon's in play and we play that card, it's the Glyph Bridge elemental, so if we play it as a creature, we will get a scry. If we play it as an aura, it's not a creature spell that shares a creature type with our commander because it's not a creature spell, so we don't get the scry. However, again, if Monica is in play, or if she's not because she's in the command zone, then, I'm sorry, I should put it this way. if Monica's front face is up, if we have Monica Rambeau in play rather than Photon, or if Monica's in the command zone, then anytime we cast a human, we will get the scry if we use Path of Ancestry's mana to cast that human. So there you go. We are running Myriad Landscape. This is a tap land that taps for colorless, or we can pay 2, tap, and sack it to search our library for up to 2 basic lands that share a land type. So in this deck, either 2 basic plains or 2 basic mountains. And then we put those on the battlefield tapped and shuffle. So it's a little bit like Explosive Vegetation. We can't find different basic lands, and it is slow. It comes in tapped, the lands we get are tapped, and we have to pay 2 and tap and sack it to make this all happen. But it is 1 land drop that turns into 2 lands in play. This is a good way for us to find a couple of mountains if we've got plenty of plains in play. Or if we're hurting for plains maybe, Myriad Landscape can find 2 of them for us. So it's a little bit of acceleration, albeit slow acceleration, if you'll pardon the oxymoron. Similarly, we've got Temple of the False God. This is a land that comes in untapped and taps for 2 colorless mana because it is a soul land. We just can't tap it at all unless we control at least 4 other lands, so 5 or more including itself. So while not everyone loves this land, this can accelerate us, just not early game, which admittedly is when we most want acceleration. But again, like I mentioned with Sol Ring, Monica, transforming her into Photon or just casting Photon requires 2 generic mana. Temple of the False God is 1 land we tap and we've got that. So this helps us mid-game or late game. If our opening hand is, a mountain and a Temple of the False God and no other mana sources, we probably want to mulligan, but being able to get this out on turn 5 often makes us go from having 4 mana to 6 mana, and that's pretty solid. This is always a card we're going to want, it's just not always a card we're going to be able to use. That's true of any of our big, our 5 and 6 drops too, so yeah. Next up, we've got Battlefield Forge. It's a pain land. This is just like our Talisman of Conviction. It taps for colorless or a red or a white if we let it do a damage to us. Everything I said about the Talisman is true here too. It's an untapped duel for us, essentially. Yeah, it's great. Go for it. Fury Calm Snarl. The Snarls all have difficult to pronounce names. Shine Shadow Snarl. See, that was so easy for me. What are we talking about? Anyway, this is a land that taps for red or white, and as it enters, if we reveal a mountain or plains from our hand, it will come in untapped. Otherwise, it comes in tapped. So this is similar to a check land in this way. We just have to have the mountain or plains in our hand in order for it to come in untapped. But if it's a tapped duel, that's okay for us. If you were to want to upgrade this, I would say Sunbillow Verge. The Verges are getting a lot of play in Standard right now, so they're not cheap, but it's definitely more powerful, and it gives your colors as well. We are also running Temple of Triumph. It's a scry land. Comes in tapped, makes our colors, scries 1 when it comes in. Love it. These things are perennially reprinted. They're in Foundations right now. Super cheap, tapped duel that gives you a little extra value. Why not? And if you were to want to run Elegant Parlor, the Surveil land version of this, that would be a great upgrade, albeit a much more expensive one. We have Sundown Pass as well. This is a slow land. It comes in tapped unless we control 2 or more other lands. Just any type of land. As long as this isn't the first or second land you have, this is an untapped duel. Otherwise, it just taps for red or white, and so it's great. I normally use the slow lands as the best example of what you could upgrade your check lands to, but thanks to the recent, at the time of recording, Secrets of Strixhaven printing, and these reprints of these slow lands in the enemy colors, we're all set for it. Great. So yeah, kind of rounds out our check land, reveal land, slow land cycle there. Like I mentioned, we do have a Tango land as well. Almost reads the same as the Sundown Pass. This is Radiant Summit. It comes in tapped unless we control 2 or more basic lands. So the Sundown Pass doesn't require those lands to be basic, it just says 2 or more lands of any type. Radiant Summit wants them to be basics. However, Radiant Summit is dual typed. It's a mountain and a plains. We can fetch this with our 2 creatures that can fetch plains cards, and then we get a dual typed land. What's especially nice is we might just draw this and play it as an untapped duel if we've already got a couple of our basics in play. Pretty good. Again, you could upgrade this to a shock land if you want to. Then we've got 8 utility lands in this deck, quite a few for this channel. We're running Axeguard Armory from Kaldheim. This is a tap land that taps for white, which is our primary color. Or we can pay 1 double red and a white, tap and sack it. So that's 5 mana essentially, 4 here and tapping the Armory. But what do we get for it? We get to search our library for an aura or equipment card, reveal it, put it in our hand, and shuffle. We can do aura or equipment. So if you've decided to put an equipment in this deck as well, you can find both. That's fine. But yeah, this is a great way to go find the best aura we may need. We can do this at instant speed on an opponent's turn, and then our next turn we just cast it and we've got the best thing we need in that moment. So yeah, Axgard Armory, the cost of inclusion is very low and it gives us a great benefit. Next is Castle Ardenvale. Similar philosophy there. This is a land that comes in tap unless we control any planes, doesn't have to be basic, and it taps for white. And then, if we want, we can pay 2 and double white and tap it to make a 1/1 white human creature token. A bonus token creature sounds great to me. If we need a mana sink, we can just make our board a little wider. Nice. Demolition Field is next. I've already mentioned that most of the time, in the kind of decks I build, the pods that want decks at this power level are not looking for an experience where they are having their lands blown up or having their mana denied in any way. And that's totally fine. Not everyone wants that in their commander game. But you do have to have an answer for problematic non-basics that someone plays. For example, we're running a Voltron deck. Some people that play Voltron decks run Rogue's Passage. Like us. And Rogue's Passage makes it so creatures are unblockable, so that makes your giant unblockable commander unable to be stopped. We don't want our opponents doing that, so we might want to run Demolition Field to blow up their Rogue's Passage. Or we're trying to kill someone with combat damage, but if they're running a Glacial Chasm, then they're not able to. They're preventing all our damage. Any land that overly empowers an opponent's game plan, or hurts or shuts down even our own game plan, is a threat. And in Magic, threats are answered. Demolition Field is my suggestion for the way to do that. This is a land that comes in untapped, taps for colorless, or we can pay 2, tap and sack it to destroy a non-basic land that an opponent controls, and that opponent gets to go find a basic land and put it on the battlefield untapped. And so do we. So even though we've lost our demo field, we got one of our basics, and even though they had one of their lands blown up, they get one of their basics, assuming, of course, we both still have basics to go find. So even though this is removal for a land, it is something that replaces that land as well, so that player is probably not down mana. And so even the tables that aren't really looking for land destruction, if we've got a one of in our deck that can do it, I think that's usually pretty acceptable. Next up, we have Ishgard the Holy Sea. This is from the Final Fantasy set. It is a tap land that taps for colorless. It is a town, not really relevant, but it's nice to know. And it has an adventure built into it. Adventures, if you haven't seen this before, are a second mode for the card. You can either cast the adventure, and then after it resolves, you can play this land from exile as your land drop whenever you have a land drop to make. Or you can simply, while this is in your hand, just play the land, and then you don't get access to the adventure. You've got to go on the adventure first before you get to the town, if you're going to go on the adventure at all. You can skip the adventure and just go to the town, though. That's how it works. So the adventure is Faith and Grief, a sorcery for 3 and double white that returns up to 2 target artifact and or enchantment cards from your graveyard to your hand. And then, of course, once that happens, we exile it, and we can play the land half later from exile as a land drop. So this is a nice regrowth effect for us for some enchantments that may have gone to our graveyard if, say, a board wipe killed Photon, and we weren't able to get her back right away. If we have some auras that have gone to the graveyard, or maybe someone counter-spelled one of our auras, or disenchanted it or something, we can always get it back with Faith and Grief, and that's fine. Similar situation is Lindblom Industrial Regency. This is another adventure land. It's a town that enters tapped and taps for red, but it also has Mage Siege as an instant speed adventure. 2 and a red that makes a 0/1 black wizard creature token with, when you cast a non-creature spell, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So we call these a black mage token. It just pings each opponent for 1 every time we cast a non-creature. We got a lot of those in this deck, and we can get a land as well. Pretty good. We've talked about Rogue's Passage a little bit. This is an untapped land. Taps for colorless, or we can pay 4 and tap it to make a creature unblockable. Great for us with Monica. Great for us with any of our creatures that we might want to get in with unblockably. We can use it politically by making a deal with an opponent and making one of their creatures unblockable. We can use it strategically by making a creature unblockable that an opponent controls when they're attacking a different opponent, even without making a deal with them, because that can really just mess up people's combat math. And it's also always fun to do that. But yeah, this is a card that does a lot for us, and it has a lot of utility. It is expensive to activate, 4 mana plus tapping the Rogue's Passage, but if this makes for a commander damage kill with Monica, then it's totally worth it. Next up, two really fun ones. Slayer's Stronghold is an untapped land that taps for colorless, or we pay a red and a white and tap it, and target creature gets +2/+0 and vigilance and haste until end of turn. So being able to use this haste is something we can sometimes get some value out of with Photon. +2/+0 is always value we'll get out of Photon. Vigilance, we've already talked about how valuable it is with Photon. Being able to use this for just 3 mana repeatably, a 3 mana Trumpet Blast that only works on one creature but does give them vigilance and haste, very, very strong for something for us to do every turn, especially late game. Great. Similarly, we've got Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion, an untapped land that taps for colorless, or if we pay 2 a red and a white and tap it, the target creature gains double strike until end of turn. This can end games. This can be something that our opponents don't know that we have held up, because they've seen us several different times, like I've mentioned throughout the deck, hold up mana to cast non-creature spells post-combat. So if they say, okay, I guess I can take, 4 or 6 or 8 or whatever it is from Monica, and that won't kill me, we say, okay. After blockers but before damage, activate Sunhome. Monica now has 4 or 6 or 8, but it's all double strike damage. And that opponent has to say, oh, well, I have to exile her. And we say, she's got hexproof. And they say, then I lose the game. And we say, yes, you do. Sunhome is a lot of fun for us, just like Slayer's Stronghold and our Final Fantasy lands and Axgar Armory and Castle Ardenvale. All of these cards are such low cost of inclusion and give us good texture for our game, make our games play a little differently, let us sneak out some value from our land base. It's really fun. I really like these kinds of things. So yeah, very good. And that sums it up. Again, I'm releasing new Marvel Superheroes Commander decks every Thursday through mid-August when the Hobbit set drops, so let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a specific commander or style of deck. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you want to support what I do here, make sure to like and subscribe, ring the bell if you want to be notified when my videos go live, consider joining my Patreon at patreon.com/secondmonitormagic or becoming a member of this channel on YouTube, and remember, most of all, that magic is fun. You should play more Magic.